Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the channel. We're back again with another Fat Electrician video for you guys. As I've said before, you guys seem to like these videos, and again, there's some things on this channel I haven't seen. There are some videos I have seen. This one in particular that we're going to see is, I do believe it is called Anti-Tank Dogs and Explosive Rats. So yeah, this is a very interesting video. I just saw it, popped up on my radar. I said, hey, this video looks like fun. Let's check it out. Yeah, so here we are. Here's the video in question. Let's get going, shall we?
We've already talked about America's pigeon-guided bomb from World War II.
Oh my god, that one.
And America's bat bomb from World War II. So today we're just going to finish off the topic and discuss the 3 remaining animal weapons from World War II and World War II alone, because if we went in detail on every animal weapon throughout the course of human history, we would be here literally all day long. Because trust me when I tell you that people have been trying to kill other people with animals and fire for as long as...
Oh my god. Oh no. There was more. Of course there's more. There's always more. World War II, there's always more.
People have been a thing. I mean, just to gloss over a couple, back in the day, the standard operating procedure for...
Yeah, I mean, of course. Like, I believe that was a thing. I don't know exactly what region of the world, specifically where they used elephants as, the weapons, but
combating war elephants was to take a bunch of pigs, light them on fire, and release them onto the battlefield to simultaneously scare the fuck out of Dumbo and cook dinner at the same time, which, honestly... is just god-tier level multitasking.
Really? Yeah, I always appreciate a Lord of the Rings.
And then in like 900 AD, you had Olga of Kiev burning down an entire city with flaming pigeons, subsequently killing like 5,000 people, and there was no PETA back then, so she later on became a saint, which is like the most gangster kill streak of all time. Look, I'm not saying it's right, but to achieve both of those things in one lifetime is impressive. And then in the 1200s, you had Genghis Khan, who did pretty much the exact same thing, except he used cats instead. And then here's a German military manual from the 1500s that clearly depicts how to do both of these strategies. I guess the point I'm trying to get at is people have literally been trying to light each other on fire using animals for all of human history, and it gets progressively worse and more weird.
That is ridiculous. Like, just think about that for a minute. Like, we've literally been using animals as cannon fodder to that degree for like so long. And I'm like, you know what? You're absolutely right. We have been doing that.
Weird the longer time goes on, until it would eventually peak during the Cold War when Britain made a chicken-powered nuclear landmine, but all...
Of course. Of course.
All of that's a story for a different time. Alright, kicking off our animal-based weapons of World War II list in absolutely no particular order that somebody is still gonna tell me I'm wrong about, somehow, we have the United States cat bomb. Except instead of using pigeons that were trained for 6 months to peck at the shape of a ship, the OSS, or Office of Strategic Services, which was basically like the CIA back then, got together, they said training pigeons for 6 months takes too long, we're just gonna try throwing a cat in there to see what happens. And their logic was, cats always land on their feet, and cats hate water. So if we stick one inside of a bomb, heat it out the back of a plane, and all it can see is a giant ship and the ocean, it will instinctively drive the bomb into the ship because it doesn't want to land in the water and get wet. Now, to be fair, that makes sense if you don't think about it. So the
how does that work?
Government's like, I mean, let's give it a shot. What do we have to lose? It's just taxpayer money and stray cats. Who gives a fuck? So that's exactly what they did, and not only did it fail, it failed quicker than anybody could have possibly imagined. Because
mission failed. We'll get them next time.
As it turns out, not only did cats not instinctively know how to drive a 500-pound bomb, but they also lose consciousness when free-falling. So the US government just drowned a bunch of cats. So yeah, it's definitely warheads on foreheads, not felines on foreheads. Write that down. Moving on. Coming in at number 2, we have the Soviet Union's anti-tank dogs. It's a pretty straightforward and shitty concept. Basically, the Soviets would train a bunch of dogs. The dogs to the front line, put a bomb vest on them with a large lever on the back, in the hopes that the dogs would run, dive underneath German tanks looking for treats. That would throw the lever back, which would set off the bomb vest, blowing up the dog, and hopefully blowing up the German tank. Now,
poor Fido. Poor Fido.
I think we can all agree that that's a really shitty thing to do to the goodest comrade. However, there is a silver lining because karma would hit back really hard on this one. You see, as it turns out, the Soviets were just training with whatever they had available, and they didn't have very many German tanks laying around, so they were training the dogs using Soviet tanks. What most people don't realize is Soviet tanks ran on diesel, and German tanks ran on gasoline. Not a huge difference in appearance to a human, but to a dog who uses its sense of smell, it's an enormous difference. So big, in fact, that the dogs pretty much exclusively ran and dove underneath Soviet tanks, blowing up their own comrades.
Karma's a bitch.
Karma's a bitch. And finishing off our list, we have
Exactly.
Britain's exploding rat.
Oh, fuck.
Basically, they were going to take a bunch of dead rats, scoop out their insides, and fill them full of plastic explosives. They would then use a spy network to smuggle in these rats to important strategic locations and just kind of like sprinkle them around near-ish the boiler room in hopes that the boiler room technician would find a dead rat, say, huh, and then throw it into the fire for the boiler, blowing it up, causing a bunch of mayhem. And I know what you're thinking. Why on earth would you use a dead rat? Why not just use a fake piece of coal full of explosives like the Americans did in the Civil War? That makes way more sense. That's exactly what I thought. But then it hit me. And hear me out when I say this. Maybe...
No. You know, he put on the tinfoil hat. No.
Just maybe, it's more likely that they would throw a rat into the fire, and here's why. You see, the bubonic plague, also known as the Black Death...
You know what? No, it's the moment you brought that up, I'm like, huh. That unironically is not a bad idea. Because, like, well, you're instinctively going, dead rat. And I'm like, furnace.
Death literally killed off like half of Europe. And the bubonic plague was spread from fleas that were living on rats, meaning that it stands to reason that a significant portion, if not all of the people on the European continent during World War II had a genetic predisposition to seeing a dead rat and being like,
Cast it into the fire!
Now, despite...
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Like, you know what? Now that I think about it, that makes a lot of sense if you think about it.
The fact that this was actually a good idea, it never actually panned out the way they planned, because Germany actually intercepted the first batch of exploding rats they ever made, at which point Britain decided to cut their losses on the entire idea because the Germans knew what they were up to. However, the Germans didn't know that, so they spent the rest of World War II inspecting every dead rat they found to see if it was an explosive rat or not. And the best way to do that was to look at the rat's ass because it had a fuse sticking out of it. And funnily enough, this is exactly where the phrase, "I don't give a rat's ass" came from, because after a bunch of...
Really? That's where it came from? Interesting.
German boiler technicians spent months or years looking at dead rats' balloon knots and never finding a fuse ever. They said, fuck it, I'm done looking at rat buttholes, and they just started throwing the rats in the fire without checking, hence the term, "I don't give a rat's ass." To be completely honest, did I just make that shit up? Yeah. Is it
yeah, I kind of figured that was the case.
true? Fucking maybe, but I doubt it. However, I did have you going for a second. Now, origins of the phrase, "I don't give a rat's
You did. You absolutely did. Now, actually, give you props for that.
ass" aside, the British do consider this entire mission an enormous success just due to the sheer amount of man hours that Germany wasted looking for explosive rats that never actually existed. So, you know, task failed successfully, I guess. In conclusion, nothing quite
that makes that's task failed successfully.
It stokes the fire of human creativity like trying to kill a motherfucker that you don't like. And creativity is absolutely imperative because, well, you know, it's never a war crime the first time. And on that note, thank you for watching. Best way to support the channel is go buy some merch at thefatelectrician.com. Quack bang out.
Yeah, so, okay. I seen in that video. Wow. This actually might be my shortest video I've ever made. But yeah, Maybe I could. What time do we got? 2 minutes. I guess we could look at one more video since that was kind of short. Yeah, so let's look at one more video. Welcome back, everybody. We found another video. This is Bazooka Tank, M50 Ontos. Ontos, is that how you say it? Or Ontos? Yeah, basically, we're gonna be looking at this video. The last one was also pretty short, so we got 2 in one video. Let's go.
19 was the most Marine Corps thing to ever be invented, but I was
we're back to the Marines. Okay,
wrong because it's absolutely this. Today we're talking about the M50 Ontos.
Yeah, because there was also the Yeetus Deletus.
AKA the Thing.
The Thing. Oh my god, that tank. Oh my god, no. Oh my god, no. It's the Yeetus Deletus on steroids.
Okay, real quick, this video is brought to you by Zydax Custom Gaming PCs. They're built right here in America with American tech support. They have a lifetime warranty, and they will do all kinds of crazy custom stuff if that's what you want. Here's a video of mine. Great, moving on. Okay, here's the deal. Once upon a time in the 1950s, the United States...
Speaking of PCs, I need to upgrade this one I got that I'm using at some point.
Army would set out to answer a question that had plagued mankind for decades. What if we took a tank and covered it in fucking bazookas? And to aid them in this enormous feat of engineering fuckery, they would turn to the one demographic
Oh god, it's another Yeetus Deletus.
graphic of people on the planet. They could...
That's the Marines for you. They always try to find some new way to make something go boom. But I always try to make something, make another fucking grenade launcher, like explosive weapon in some form or fashion.
do this in...
Like you cannot get these guys away from the explosives.
Insanely childish and dangerous idea justice. The farmers, by way of Alice Chalmer, a tractor manufacturing company.
No.
Okay, if you're not picking up what I'm putting down, I'm trying to tell you that the grunts and the farmers are going to come together and work on a grunts and crafts project. All right, it's absolutely going to get done. It's not going to be fucking safe, but it's going to get done and it's going to work. So they took the M56 light tank, ripped the turret off, threw that shit away, and then proceeded to weld on top 6 M40 106mm recoilless rifles. Yeah, technically they're not bazookas, they're recoilless rifles. There's a slight difference in how they function, but at the end of the day, as far as 99.9%
as far as I'm concerned, that is a bazooka.
of people need to be concerned, it's a giant metal tube that you point at the enemy to blow them the fuck up, aka it's a bazooka. Plus, bazooka tank sounds way cooler than recoilless rifle tank, so that's what we're going with. Now, I think we can all agree that welding 6 of...
Actually, I would say, like, bazooka tank sounds straightforward, efficient, and funny. And recoilless rifleless tank sounds more sophisticated. But we ain't sophisticated up in this channel.
these on top of a single vehicle is mildly ridiculous in the best way possible. However, it only gets worse from here. Because why don't you go ahead and ask me how they aim this monstrosity? I mean, look at it. It's got 6 different barrels. None of them are anywhere near each other. Clearly, it's going to be a nightmare, if not impossible, to aim this thing accurately, right? Wrong.
I was like, don't tanks usually have that thing where, like, they can, like, turn and shit?
The farmers and the grunts got together and said, we'll just use a spotting rifle. They then proceeded to mount a 50 caliber rifle on top of every single bazooka barrel, and then they would just fire 50 caliber tracer rounds until they started hitting their desired target. Then they would fire the bazooka. They're literally aiming a giant gun with a slightly smaller giant...
Of course they do.
Giant gun. I don't even know how to begin to write a punchline for that, so I'm just gonna go ahead and... I mean, could you imagine how confusing this would be to the enemy?
This is for America. This is for America.
Imagine you're some anonymous bad guy held up in a house or in a building somewhere, and this fucking monstrosity
just shows up and like, I surrender.
the corner as your butthole puckers and you realize that this is probably going to be the longest, shortest day of your life, and your new pronouns are about to be here and over there. And then this thing aims at you, fires, and it blows a nice little hole in the wall next to you as you're like, I mean, it's not good, but it's not nearly as bad as I thought it was going to be. So the farmers finished up the prototypes and took it.
Yeah. Yeah, that happened.
Out to Aberdeen Proving Ground with the Army and the Marine Corps, at which point they promptly said, fire all 6 at once, we want to see what'll happen. And the sheer amount of backblast from that knocked bricks out of the wall of the bomb shelter they were in and shattered all the windows of the vehicles they used to get out there. And it is at that point that the Army said they were no longer interested in having this vehicle due to the sheer amount of backblast, and they really did not like the fact that somebody had to get outside of the vehicle to individually reload each recoilless rifle after they had been fired. The Marine Corps, on the other hand, said, I'll take 300. The Marine Corps ordered 300.
That one guy's like, I don't know about this thing. The next guy next to him, I'll take them all.
Of these fucking things, which is terrifying to think about. I mean, to be honest, and it pains me to say this, but as far as logic goes, I actually have to side with the Marines on this one. The Army's over here bitching like, oh, you could get shot at while you're trying to reload, and the Marine Corps is like, we've been getting fucking shot at since 1775 without a bazooka tank. Imagine how much fun it's going to be with a bazooka tank. And I mean, to be fair, what the fuck is going to be left to shoot at you after you shoot?
I'm just thinking that too. It's like, I mean, realistically speaking, if you're very proficient with it, there won't be anything left of them. Like, who cares at that point? It's like you basically just like flatten their asses with it. Like, there won't be anybody left.
The first 6 gigantic bazookas that general direction. And even if somebody was still alive and they did have big enough balls to pop their head up to try to shoot at you while you're reloading, you still get to shoot at them with your spotting 50 caliber fucking rifles and the 1930 caliber machine gun on it. Like, it's a win-win. And I know what you're all thinking, but how did it perform in real life and not just on the chalkboard? Thank you so much for asking. It was first deployed in 1964 to the Dominican Republic during Operation Powerback, where it promptly destroyed both the tanks that they ran across, that being the AMX-13 and an L-60. And then after that issue was resolved, all 300 of them were promptly sent to Vietnam. Okay, here's the kicker with that. There was no established battle doctrine for this weapon. There's no rules, there's no standard operating procedure. And there was no Marine Corps MOS that was designated as being responsible for this weapon, meaning there's no one guy that's like the expert. They literally took 300 of these fucking monstrosities, gave them to the Marine Corps, and said, here's your bazooka chariot, kids, have fun. Shit got out of hand. You're so dumb. If you knew anything, you'd know that during the Vietnam
that's the keyboard warrior
War, the Viet Cong had virtually no tanks, meaning that a tank destroyer like this would be virtually useless. Yeah, not quite. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the Beehive round, aka the Flechette round. Each one of these had 10,000 hardened steel darts.
Oh yeah, I remember talking about it because it literally explode and then those things like fire all over the place and like ricochet through shit, if I'm correct.
Side of them, and when fired, they went fucking everywhere. And this weapons platform can fire 6 of them at a time, meaning that this thing can turn and proceed to shoot 60,000 fucking nails in your general direction, okay? When the trees started talking, they weren't talking for very long. The Ontos was so dominant on the battlefield that the enemy began actively avoiding it, meaning that the Marine Corps loved it because when this thing was anywhere near them, they were very seldom, if ever, ambushed. And not only was the Ontos effective in jungle warfare, but urban warfare as well. During the Tet Offensive at the Battle of Hue, which is one of the only examples of heavy urban combat to happen during the Vietnam War, the Ontos would prove absolutely dominant. Not only was it highly effective against fortified enemy positions, but it was extremely effective at convincing enemies to evacuate buildings. You see, at this point in time, the enemy was already intimately acquainted with the Ontos and knew how it operated, so all the Marines had to do to get an entire building to clear out was shoot the 50 caliber spotting rifle through the window a couple times, and all of the enemies would, and I quote, scurry out of the building like rats when you turn the lights on, because they knew what was going to come next after that 50 caliber round.
Like, when he shoots the window, it's the fucking guy!
Unfortunately, the original 300 M50 Ontoses would be the only ones ever created, and after the Vietnam War, the remaining ones would all be turned over to the US Army, where they would be decommissioned, stripped down, and sold off to construction companies as tracked vehicles. Luckily, however, some of them did make their way into museums where their legacy is still preserved today. In conclusion, in the 1950s, a bunch of farmers and the United States Marine Corps came together to work on a grunts and crafts project, and what they created was so
Grunts and crafts.
childish, so ridiculous, and so devastatingly effective that it could only be characterized as the thing. Thank you for watching. Best way to support the channel is go buy some merch at thefatelectrician.com. Quack bang out. I wonder if I can fit a bazooka tank in here.
No! No! Okay. Yeah, that's the end of the video. Thank you guys for joining me today, and I'll see you all next time. Goodbye.